Welcome to Dog Facts and Fun, where every fact hides a story of love. I used to think I knew dogs, raised 'em my whole life. Then one hot summer afternoon, I found my old hound lying under the porch, barely breathing. I thought she was just tired. Turns out I had made a mistake, one I'd warned others about for years. And yet, I missed it in my own home. Today we're talking about 18 common mistakes dog owners make. Not because we're careless, but because no one ever told us otherwise. Some of these are harmless. Others, they can cost your dog everything. Stick with me to the end. I'll tell you what happened to my girl and what I wish I'd done differently. Because here's the truth. Loving your dog isn't enough. You've got to know better to do better. So let's start with the first kind of mistake, the kind that hurts your dog's body long before you even realize it. Number 1. Feeding cooked bones. You'd think it's an act of love, giving your dog that leftover bone after a nice dinner. I used to do it all the time. My old hound would sit by the table, eyes wide, tail tapping the floor like a drum. And I'd think, what harm could one bone do? But here's the part they don't put on the dog food commercials. Cooked bones don't soften, they splinter. Those tiny shards turn into razors once they hit a dog's stomach. You won't see it happen. You'll just notice they stop eating, or start whining, or lie there breathing shallow. One of my clients, a Vietnam vet named Bill, told me through tears, "Doc, I just wanted to make him happy." His shepherd never made it through surgery. And that story has stayed with me for years because Bill wasn't careless. He was loving, just misinformed. So if you're listening right now, take this as a quiet warning from someone who's been there. Never give cooked bones. Not ribs, not chicken, not steak. It's not worth the risk. Raw bones. Maybe, but even then, only under a vet's eye. You don't want to gamble with something as precious as the heart beating at your feet. And speaking of hidden dangers, there's another mistake I see almost every summer. It's not in your dog's bowl, it's on their skin. Let's talk about number 2 toxic flea treatments. You'd think something sold at every pet store would be safe, right? I used to think that too. Back then, I trusted the shiny labels, the vet-sounding names, the promises of fast relief. But sometimes, the thing that's meant to protect your dog ends up hurting them the most. It started with a beagle named Rusty. His owner was a retired firefighter, tough as nails, but when Rusty had his first seizure, the man nearly collapsed. Turned out the flea drops he'd used, the same ones you see on every pharmacy shelf, were packed with chemicals banned in some countries. What most folks don't know is that dogs process toxins differently than humans. Their livers can't handle certain insecticides, especially the ones meant to kill pests fast. And if you've got a senior dog or a rescue with a weak immune system, the risk multiplies. We ran the tests. We called poison control. And still, all we could do was wait. Rusty pulled through, but barely. And his owner told me later, if I'd known, I never would have touched that stuff. Look, I get it. Fleas are awful. They bite, they itch, they make your dog miserable. But not all flea treatments are created equal. If the label has a warning that says use gloves, you better believe that's not something I'd put on my dog's skin. So what's the safer option? Ask your vet. Ask twice, especially if your pup's over 8 years old or already on meds. Natural alternatives exist, but they're not all effective either. The key is knowing what's in the bottle before it touches their fur. And while we're talking about things we forget to check, let me ask you this. When's the last time you looked inside your dog's mouth? Because number 3 might surprise you. It's quiet, it creeps up slow, and by the time it shows, it's already done damage. You wouldn't think teeth could kill a dog. I didn't. Not until I met a shepherd mix named Lucky. And trust me, the name was ironic. His breath was the first thing that hit me. Not the usual dog smell, but something deeper, sweeter, almost like rot. His owner, an older gentleman who'd rescued Lucky from a shelter, thought it was just age. He's old Doc. Dogs get like that. But no, that odor, it was infection. Years of plaque gum disease and bacteria slowly leaking into the bloodstream. His heart was working overtime, his kidneys under siege, all because no one had touched a toothbrush. And that's the mistake. We groom the fur, clip the nails, but ignore the mouth. We assume the dry food takes care of it, but it doesn't. Not fully. Not enough. What most folks don't know is that dental disease doesn't stay in the mouth. It travels. It inflames the body. It shortens lives. And the tragedy, dogs rarely show pain. They just eat slower, chew on one side, sleep more. You won't know they're hurting until it's bad. Now, Lucky made it. We pulled 10 teeth, put him on meds, and 2 weeks later, he wagged like a puppy. But his owner still looked haunted. If I'd brushed once a week, he said maybe we'd never have gotten here. So if you're listening to this and you've never lifted your dog's lip, today's the day. Look inside. See what's going on. Your dog can't ask for help, but their mouth is probably trying. And speaking of things that sneak up on you, let me tell you about number 4, overfeeding treats. It starts with love and ends with a dog who can't climb stairs. It always starts the same way. A treat here, a biscuit there. Just a little something for being cute or waiting by the door or not barking at the mailman. And how can you say no to those eyes, right? Especially when you live alone, and that dog is the only soul waiting for you when you come home. I get it. I really do. But love through food? It's a dangerous habit, one that creeps in quietly. One day your dog is jumping into the truck bed, the next he hesitates, pants more, sleeps more. You tell yourself he's just slowing down. But it's not age, it's weight. And weight, that's on us. I had a golden retriever patient once. Name was Baxter. Sweet as pie. But by the time he hit 9 years old, his joints were shot. His owner, a former oil field worker, carried him to the truck every visit. I just wanted to spoil him, he told me. Didn't think it would cost him his legs. We calculated the calories. Turns out those tiny training treats, each one was like a donut. 5 a day, every day for years. It added up, like it always does. So here's the truth. No one wants to say food is not love. Attention is. Walks are. Gentle words. Eye contact. Dogs don't need a treat to know you care. They just need you to be there. And if they gain too much, they lose more than movement. They lose years. And while we're on the subject of heat and heaviness, let me ask you this. Have you ever checked the pavement before walking your dog in summer? Because number 5, that one burns fast and leaves scars you can't always see. Baxter the Golden. I told you about the one who got too heavy. His story doesn't end with bad hips. One summer his owner brought him in again, this time with raw, blistered paws. He'd taken him for a short walk after dinner, like they always did. Same road, same pace. But that day the asphalt had been baking under the sun all afternoon. It looked normal. It felt normal. Until Baxter started limping. What most people don't realize, and I mean most, is that when the air hits 85 degrees, that blacktop under your feet can hit 130. You wouldn't fry an egg on it, but you could sure as hell burn through paw pads in under a minute. And the kicker dogs won't tell you it hurts not right away. They'll keep walking. For you. Because they trust you know better. It's why now every time I see someone walking their dog at noon in July, I wince. Not because they're bad people, but because they just don't know. I didn't either once. So here's your trick before you step outside. place the back of your hand on the ground. Hold it for 7 seconds. If you can't, neither can your dog. Wait until sunset. Walk in the shade. Choose the grass. It's not about being fussy, it's about being fair. Because your dog doesn't get shoes. They get you. And that leads me to one of the most heartbreaking mistakes I see, not in the summer, but inside your car. Let's talk about number 6, leaving dogs in hot cars. And if you think cracking the window makes it okay, I've got something you need to hear. You know that feeling when you open your truck after it's been parked in the sun, that rush of heat that smacks you in the face and takes your breath for a second. Now imagine being locked inside with no way out, no water and a fur coat you can't take off. That's what it feels like for a dog left in a car. I had a case once. A black lab named Duke. His owner was a good man, Army vet, disciplined, quiet, did everything by the book. He ran into the hardware store, left, the windows cracked, told himself, 5 minutes. When he came back, Duke was slumped on the floorboard, panting hard, gums pale. His body temperature was 106. We fought to bring it down, poured rubbing alcohol on his paws, packed him in wet towels, started IVs. But Duke didn't make it. And here's the hard part. The truck was parked in the shade. The outside temp was only 76, but inside it climbed past 100 in minutes. That's how fast it happens. Most folks think they'd never make that mistake. But it doesn't always look like negligence. Sometimes it's just underestimating time. Or thinking they'll be fine, it's just a minute. But heat stroke doesn't care about minutes. It takes what it wants. So now I tell every client this: if you can't take your dog inside with you, don't take them at all. Not on errands. Not just for the ride. Leave them home where it's safe, where the air moves, where love isn't a risk. And if all this feels heavy, it should. Because these 6 mistakes, they come from love, from habit, from the quiet assumption that dogs will let us know if something's wrong. But they won't. Not always. And that's why the next mistake is just as dangerous, not something you do, but something you assume. Let's talk about number 7, thinking they'll grow out of it. He used to nip at the mail. Just little growls. Nothing serious. That's what one man told me, a retired welder who brought in his border collie after the dog had bitten a neighbor kid. He wasn't a bad owner. He just thought the barking, the snapping, the leash pulling were things the dog would outgrow, like teenage moods, temporary, harmless. But here's the thing about dogs: they don't grow out of behavior. They grow into it. Habits don't disappear with time. They deepen, get stronger, rooted. That same collie had once been mouthy as a pup, chewed shoes, growled at the broom. Nothing that raised alarms, but no one corrected it. No redirection, no boundaries. And 5 years later, all that untrained energy turned into something else, unpredictability. I told the man gently, this didn't happen overnight. It built slowly under the surface. Because dogs aren't born knowing what we want. They need teaching, repetition, patience. And if they don't get that, they'll make their own rules. The good news: it's never too late to start. I've seen 9-year-old rescues turn into therapy dogs, not because they were born good, but because someone finally showed them how to be understood. So if your dog barks at strangers, chews up shoes, jumps on guests, don't write it off. Don't say she'll calm down when she's older. That's not a plan. That's a risk. And that brings me to one of the oldest myths in the dog world. One I've heard more than any other. Let's talk about number 8, rubbing their nose in it, and why that old-school advice is doing more harm than good. I know. That's how we were taught. Your dog pees on the rug. You grab them, scold them, rub their nose in it. That's what your uncle did. Your neighbor. maybe even your own parents. And it seemed to work, or at least it made the dog stop. Or so we thought. But what if I told you it didn't work at all? What if all it did was make your dog scared to go near you after an accident? Scared to pee in front of you? Scared to wake you up when they needed out? Not because they learned their lesson, but because they learned you were unpredictable. I had a client once, an older man who raised hunting dogs his whole life. He told me, that's how we trained them. Rub and yell. They stop. But his new pup, a little rescue mutt with big eyes and a bigger heart, started hiding behind the fridge to pee. Not out of spite, out of fear. See, here's the truth. Dogs don't associate the punishment with the accident, they associate it with you. And once they do, that trust breaks. Quietly. Sometimes permanently. Want your dog to stop peeing indoors, then reward the right behavior. Praise them when they go outside. Set a schedule. Be predictable. Because that's what dogs crave more than anything: safety in your reaction. And if they have an accident, clean it. Move on. It's not a failure, it's feedback. And you get to decide what lesson they take from it. And now that we're on the topic of what dogs don't understand the way we assume they do, there's another mistake I see all the time. Let's talk about number 9, not socializing early enough. Because some fears, they don't go away with time. They grow teeth. Some fears fade with time. But in dogs, most of them start small and grow teeth if left alone. I remember a pup named Teddy. Sweet little thing. Floppy ears, tail like a windshield wiper. His owner, a retired postal worker, brought him in for shots. He hates the vacuum, he said, laughing, and the car, and bikes, and hats, and kids. By the time Teddy hit 6 months, that list had doubled. And it wasn't funny anymore. Here's what happened. No early exposure. No gentle introductions. No safe chances to see the world before fear filled in the blanks. And once fear sets in, it takes root. Not always in barking or biting, sometimes in shaking. Hiding. Shutting down. See, there's a window, a magical one between 3 and 14 weeks. That's when puppies absorb the world like sponges. New smells, new surfaces, new sounds. And if they don't get those experiences, they grow into dogs who think everything unknown is dangerous. And this isn't about toughening them up. It's about showing them the world is okay before they decide it's not. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, well, it's too late for my dog, don't lose hope. It's never too late to build trust. But it gets harder. That's the part no one tells you. It takes longer, requires more patience, and more repair than you ever planned for. So if you've got a young pup, even a rescue, just finding their feet, show them the world. Slowly, kindly, one safe moment at a time. And while we're talking about mixed signals, there's a mistake I see all the time in families, especially when multiple people are involved. One person says no, another says, "Aw, just this once," and the dog, they get lost in the middle. Let's move into number 10, inconsistent rules between family members and why that just this once may be setting your dog up to fail. Dogs don't understand exceptions. They understand patterns. You can train them to wait at the door. But the moment one person lets them jump on the couch, while another yells at them for it, confusion starts to creep in. And confusion for a dog feels like failure. I had a couple once, both retired, raising a rescue lab they adored. He was strict. No feeding from the table, no bed privileges, everything by the book. She, on the other hand, had a softer heart. Slipped the dog bacon under the table when he wasn't looking. Let him curl up on the couch at night. Just this once, she'd whisper. But dogs remember just this once. Not in words, in results. After a few months, the lab started whining at the table, pawing at the couch, growling when corrected. Not because he was defiant, but because he'd been rewarded and punished for the same things. That's not disobedience. That's emotional whiplash. See, dogs thrive on clarity. If you say off, but your partner says, okay, you're not training, you're gambling. And the one who pays for it isn't you. It's the dog stuck in the middle, trying to make sense of a world where the rules change by the day. So if you live with others, kids, spouse, roommates, sit down and have the talk. Set the rules. Agree on them. Write them down if you have to. Because your dog is listening, watching, learning. And speaking of things, they're learning every single day. Have you looked at the back of that treat bag or food label lately? Let's move into number 11. Ignoring what's really in your dog's food, and how nutrition isn't just about quantity, but about quality. Most folks check the price, maybe the brand. Some look for chicken on the label and feel pretty good about it. But very few turn that bag around and actually read what's in it. I used to be one of them. A man once brought in his husky, beautiful coat, bright eyes, but always scratching, always bloated, always tired. He told me, she eats the best stuff. Costs more than my lunch. I asked him to bring the bag next visit. And when he did, the first ingredient wasn't meat, it was corn. The second, some filler with a name longer than a street address. Turns out, premium doesn't always mean healthy. And natural doesn't mean anything at all, not legally anyway. Here's what's scary. The pet food industry is full of words that sound safe, but don't actually mean safe. And many treats, even the tiny ones, pack more calories than a cheeseburger. Do that every day for months. Your dog pays the price in silence. And older dogs, they're more sensitive. Their kidneys, their liver, their weight. It all depends on what you put in that bowl. You wouldn't eat out of a bag with mystery meat and syrup powder. Why should they? So next time you buy food, do more than glance. Look at the first 5 ingredients. Ask your vet what they mean. And remember, just because your dog eats it doesn't mean it's good for them. Dogs are loyal to the hand that feeds them, but they're counting on that hand to know better. And speaking of food, what happens to it once you open the bag? Because number 12 is something I see in almost every house, even the careful ones. Let's talk about improper food storage and how good food can turn bad fast if you're not watching. You bought the good stuff, checked the label, paid more for it because you care. But then you clip the bag shut, leave it in the garage, and scoop from it every day, like always. Sounds harmless, right? But here's what most people miss. Once you open that bag of kibble, the clock starts ticking. Air, moisture, heat. They all creep in. And what started as premium food starts going stale faster than you'd think. I had a man once lived out in the country, kept his dog food in a big metal bin by the back door. Thought it was safe, airtight. But one summer mold formed under the lid. He didn't see it. His dog, a shepherd mix, started vomiting every few days. We ran blood work, changed diets, chased symptoms, until he brought in a scoop of the food. That's when we found it. Mold spores, rancid fat, spoiled nutrition. The thing is, dogs don't stop eating when food goes bad. They trust you. They eat what you give them. But that doesn't mean it's still safe. So here's what I tell every dog owner now. Once you open the bag, pour the food into an airtight container, but keep the original bag inside. Why? Because if something goes wrong, you'll want the barcode and batch number in case of a recall. And keep it in a cool, dry place. Not the garage, not the porch. Think of it like storing medicine because, for your dog, that's exactly what food is: daily medicine in disguise. And while we're on the topic of storage, there's one thing even more important than food that must be protected. Let's talk about number 13. Letting your dog go without identification, because it only takes one open gate to lose everything. It doesn't take a hurricane, or a car crash, or some freak accident. Sometimes all it takes is a loose latch on the gate, a guest who forgets to close the door, a squirrel. 1 second of distraction and your dog is gone. And the worst part, you don't even hear it happen. I remember a man named George. Lived alone with his lab, Maggie. She followed him everywhere, never needed a leash, never wandered. Until one morning, a delivery driver left the gate open. George didn't notice, not until lunchtime. By then, Maggie was 3 blocks down, terrified by traffic. No tags, no chip. He searched for weeks, put up posters, called shelters, left her food out every night. But she never came back. And when he told me, voice cracking after all those years, he didn't say, "I wish I'd kept the gate shut." He said, "I wish I'd given her a tag." That's the mistake. We think my dog never runs, or she knows her way home. But panic doesn't think straight. Fear makes even the best trained dogs bolt. And once they're gone, it's not just about finding them. It's about someone else being able to. So what can you do? Simple. A tag with your number. A collar that fits. And if you want real peace of mind, a microchip. It's small, it's safe, and it's the reason thousands of dogs every year do come home. Because here's the truth. Your dog depends on you, not just to feed them, but to bring them back, if they ever get lost. That's not paranoia. That's responsibility. And while we're on the topic of the body betraying us, let's talk about something just as basic, just as messy, and just as misunderstood. Number 14. Punishing potty accidents, and why it's time we rethink how we react when nature calls. You wake up, walk into the living room, and there it is. The smell, the mess, the frustration. Maybe you raise your voice. Maybe you point. Maybe you say, "You know better." But here's the part. Most people don't know. Maybe they don't. Dogs aren't born understanding where to go. And even when they start learning, their bodies don't always catch up with the lesson. Bladders need time to grow. Muscles need practice. Signals need repeating. I once had a retired Navy man bring in his 6-month-old shepherd. Strong pup. Smart. But still having accidents, he said. Stubborn little thing. I asked how long she could hold it. 5 hours easy. But then I asked, what about overnight? That's when he paused. See, puppies like babies don't have full control yet. And older dogs, they might lose it due to age medication or illness. It's not defiance, it's biology. But when we punish them, yell, isolate, shame. They don't learn faster. They learn fear. They learn to hide it. They learn not to wake you when they need out. And that's when it gets worse. So here's a better way: set a schedule. Praise them when they go outside. Watch for the signs, sniffing, circling that anxious look. And if they mess up, clean it up. Say nothing. Start again. It's not personal. It's progress. Because dogs don't need discipline to learn this. They need patience and consistency and your trust that they're trying. And speaking of trying, let's talk about the one place people think they're trying to help, but where things often go sideways. Number 15. Taking young puppies to dog parks, and how socializing too early in the wrong place can do more harm than good. It sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? Big open space, other dogs to play with, a chance for your puppy to stretch their legs and burn off that wild energy. You clip the leash, grab the treats, and head off proud to be the kind of owner who cares about socializing early. But here's the truth. No one tells you the dog park is the wrong place to start. I had a woman once, kind soul, adopted a mixed-breed pup from the shelter. Just 10 weeks old. She brought him to the park thinking it would help with confidence. And for the first 5 minutes it looked perfect. Until a large, unneutered male pinned him to the ground and growled in his face. He wasn't hurt, not physically. But from that moment on, he feared other dogs, even the small ones, even the calm ones. What most people forget is that young puppies are like open books. Every page is blank, and what you write in those first few chapters, it stays. The dog park is loud, unregulated, unpredictable. And for a puppy that hasn't had all their vaccines yet, it's not just scary, it's dangerous. Parvo, kennel cough, parasites, aggression. Even well-meaning dogs can overwhelm a pup who's still learning how to be in their own body. So yes, socialize your puppy. But do it smart. Controlled environments, one-on-one meetups, friendly older dogs with soft eyes and gentle steps. Let them build confidence before tossing them into the deep end. Because a bad first impression with other dogs, that's not something they grow out of. It becomes their worldview. And while we're talking about things that sneak into a dog's body before we even notice, let's talk about what's crawling under their fur. Number 16. Using harsh or toxic flea and tick products, and why what you spray on the outside could be damaging the inside. We all want to protect our dogs. No one likes the idea of fleas biting into their skin or ticks crawling through their coat. So we go to the store, pick up a bottle that promises fast kill and feel like we're doing the right thing. But what if the thing that's supposed to protect your dog is the very thing putting them at risk? I once had a client bring in his border collie after applying a flea treatment he'd used for years. But this time was different. The dog was drooling, twitching, restless. He's never reacted like this before. The man said eyes wide. Same brand. Same dose. We checked the label. A new formula. Same box. Different chemistry. And that was all it took. The truth is, many over-the-counter flea and tick products use pesticides that were designed for farm use. They can irritate the skin, overload the liver, even cause neurological reactions, especially in small breeds, especially in seniors, especially when mixed with other medications. And the scary part, these reactions don't always happen right away. Sometimes they show up days later. A rash, lethargy, a dog who just doesn't seem like himself. Yes, we need to keep pests away, but how we do it matters. Ask your vet. Read every ingredient. If a label says, "Do not touch without gloves," ask yourself, is this something you really want, sinking into your dog's skin? There are safer options. Natural sprays. Oral meds prescribed based on age-weight health status. You have choices, and your dog can't make them for you. And while we're on the subject of care that often gets skipped over, there's one part of the body that most people forget entirely, even though it affects how long your dog lives. Number 17. Skipping grooming and dental care. Because a little brushing could be the reason your dog lives 2 years longer. You wouldn't go a year without brushing your teeth, or letting your hair mat up until it pulls at your scalp. But somehow, when it comes to dogs, even the ones we love like family, we forget that grooming isn't vanity. It's survival. I had a spaniel once named Rosie. Sweet, gentle girl. Her owner, a retired teacher, thought brushing was just for show. She kept Rosie clean, sure, fed her well, but she never looked inside her mouth, never ran a comb through that thick undercoat. By the time Rosie came in, her back teeth were rotting, her gums swollen. She had mats so tight under her belly that they were pulling at her skin, quietly, silently. Because that's what dogs do, they endure. Until they can't. We cleaned her up, pulled 5 teeth, shaved down years of neglect. And Rosie walked out of that clinic like she was 5 years younger. And that's the thing, grooming isn't just about looking good. It prevents skin infections, reduces pain, regulates body temperature, helps catch tumors early, and brushing their teeth. It's not optional, it's medicine. I've seen dogs live longer just because their owners started brushing once a week. Not with fancy tools, just consistency, just love in the form of prevention. So run your fingers through their coat, check behind the ears, peek into their mouth. If it smells bad, it's not dog breath, it's a warning. And while we're on the subject of warnings, there's one mistake that still haunts many owners. Because it's not about health, or food, or training. It's about time and how fast it runs out. Let's finish strong with number 18, skipping regular vet visits. And pet insurance, the mistake people only realize after it's already too late. Most people don't skip the vet because they don't care. They skip because nothing seems wrong. The dog's eating fine, wagging tail, no limping, no whining. So we think, why spend the money? We'll wait until there's a problem. Then we'll go. But the trouble is, by the time you see a problem, it's often too late to fix it cheaply, or quickly, or at all. I remember a man named Curtis, Vietnam vet. Tough hands, quiet eyes. He brought in his shepherd mix Harley, who hadn't eaten in 3 days. We did a scan, found a tumor the size of a grapefruit. If we'd caught it 3 months earlier, maybe we could have removed it. Maybe. He looked at me and said, "Doc, I didn't know." He was still chasing squirrels last week. That's the part that breaks me. Dogs don't complain. They don't announce when something starts hurting. They hide it. Out of instinct, out of love. And by the time you notice the silence, the damage is already there. Wellness exams aren't about wasting money. They're about buying time. About catching things small when they're still fixable. About listening with tools sharper than the naked eye, and pet insurance. It's not for the checkups. It's for that one terrible day when something goes wrong and the bill hits $5,000. I've seen people put down perfectly treatable dogs, not out of cruelty, but out of cost. So if your dog is past 5, go once a year. If they're past 10, go twice. Don't wait for them to cry. They won't. And that brings us to the real truth behind this whole list. Most of these mistakes, they don't come from neglect. They come from love, from not knowing, from doing what we were taught even when what we were taught was wrong. But now you do know. Remember that story I told you at the beginning about my old hound under the porch, breathing shallow, too tired to stand. It wasn't the heat. It wasn't neglect. It was a mistake. One I didn't know I was making. That's what this video is about. Not blame, but awareness. Because every dog deserves a life without silent suffering. And every good owner deserves a chance to do better, without guilt, without shame, just with truth. So maybe you've made a few of these mistakes. I have too. That doesn't make us bad people. It makes us human. But now that you know better, you can do better. Check the food. Watch the pavement. Read the label. Listen to your dog even when they're not saying anything out loud. And before you go, tell me this. Which of these 18 mistakes hit home the hardest? Leave a comment. Share your story. You never know who you might help. And if this video helped you see your dog a little differently, stay close. Because in the next one, we'll talk about 5 quiet signs your dog might be in pain and how to catch them before it's too late. Until then, hug your dog tonight. And thank them for loving us through all our mistakes.